All right, good afternoon, good evening. The time is 4:32. We'll call our work session into order. Our first item of business is a presentation on fiscal health metrics by CFO Pickle.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
So this is the memo that this is not the actual memo. This is the graphs and the information, the metrics that we actually received from the Comptroller's office last week. So they sent out this memo, and the memo said that this is the first year that they have provided this metric for cities. They've been doing it for counties, but this is the first year that they've done it for cities. And this is intended to allow us to compare ourselves to peer cities, so other cities that are within our county or across the state, just ones that are any that you want to look up, you can see it. So if you click on that link that's in there, you should be able to pull this up for the cities as well as the counties now. And if you can see right there in the green boxes, it says no concern. And that is the same, I am hedging that if it was concern, it would just say concern and maybe in a red box. None of the ones that I pulled up said that. So we are not any concern compared to other cities in our area, in our peer group. So, I mean, they explain themselves really, but do you have any questions about this? This is based on 2025 audited numbers as well. I should say that.
Just looking at the charts, pretty interesting. Is that spike in 2019? Is that ARPA dollars with the blue bar?
Yeah, I think that's when it
Squinting
first
to read
started.
it.
Right, that's the only thing I could figure too, because I looked at that as well, and I was like, wow, that was a big jump in the revenues there. But yeah, so it was the ARPA.
Yeah.
And otherwise, our spending and our revenues stay pretty neck and neck. Our fund balance has been drawn down a little bit, but as you can see, it was going up and then it's been drawn down. So it's not severely depleted. It's maybe not as healthy as it was in, a few years ago, but it's still running the same range. So,
Well,
again, no concern.
costs have gone up dramatically since the pandemic,
Mhm.
Yeah.
increasingly so over the years. So,
I was gonna
Right.
say your dollar in 2019 took a lot farther than today.
true, very true.
Right. So good news is that our spending and our revenues coming in are staying pretty neck and neck, year over year. So some years, like Commissioner Wilkinson mentioned, there's spikes in the revenue.
Mhm.
And of course, that added to the fund balance for the next year. But they stay pretty closely aligned, and that's how you maintain a healthy fund balance.
I had a question. Where it says the budget status, approval with consideration, and then budget certificate, I assume that we did those 4 things. Sorry, I have my glasses. 4 things under here. Is that correlated to the no or?
The 4 things that are listed under there are that's the canned statement that you see on the website whenever it has the qualifications for receiving the certificate. We did adopt a budget on or before the fiscal year ends. We did file it with CLT Local Government Finance at the Comptroller's office within 15 days of adoption. And we had a finding in the budget. So that is probably part of the reason that we did not get the budget certificate. But the budget was approved with consideration.
And it was the truck that we had budgeted for like 3 years in a row, but missed it the last year because we just hadn't been able to get it. And so because it was not budgeted for that 3rd year, if I'm remembering correctly, that was a finding because we made the expenditure and it wasn't budgeted for in that fiscal year. And so that's why, even though it had been budgeted for the 2 years prior, we just hadn't received it. It was just a oversight.
Right, it was an oversight. We didn't amend the budget for that. We should have budgeted for it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Even if we didn't anticipate getting it in that year and we didn't amend. So those 2 things. An oversight.
Yeah. But that was the only finding,
Yes.
correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think it's interesting. I just had noticed that it says on here that as a best practice to reduce financial risk, cash reserves sufficient to cover at least 2 months or 60 days of average expenditures without using additional financial resources should be maintained.
And we can-
I had always thought it was 3 months that they, preferred or thought was best practice. So being a little over 6 months feels better compared to,
It makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Well into the
For
green zone.
sure.
yes, more than double. Yes. So,
Right.
okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Pickle. All right. And that is posted on is it on the website somewhere?
Is it?
It's on social media. I'm not sure if it's on the website, but if you wanted to take a closer look at those graphs and those numbers.
And you can compare to other cities too by visiting what the comptroller is like. And the cities that are missing means they didn't get their audit done in time. So
Hmm,
not gonna single anybody out, but that's what that means.
good to know. All right, second item of business, open discussion by the commission of the budget estimate with opening slides by Mr. Granum.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll be as brief as I can. I just wanted to set the stage for the commission's discussion, mostly for audience who might be just joining us. I will quickly talk about the themes and features in the budget estimate. I'll turn it over to the commission for discussion, and at the end, I'll have a little preview of our town hall that's set for next Tuesday. Some strategic themes that are built into the budget estimate fall in these three broad buckets. Invest in infrastructure. It debuts the city's first capital improvement plan. It invests in our workforce, attract and retain great employees with a 2.25% COLA. And how we calculated that is in the Q&A. And it sustains city services, ensuring excellent municipal services across all departments. It does require us to focus resources, and so to that end, baked into this budget is sunsetting the CARTA paratransit service at the end of the calendar year. Those are the broad strategic themes. A little bit more granularity, some specific key features. It does request a 16-cent property tax increase in FY27. And it foreshadows a need for another one of 16 cents in FY28. If the commission authorizes the 16-cent tax increase this year, it would set the rate at $1.29. It sustains the city of Red Bank's 100% match of the county's portion of property tax relief for the approximately 138 Red Bank residents qualified for tax relief. It addresses all 5 commission goals. And as I mentioned, it creates the first capital improvement plan. And to the end of investing in staff, it keeps us competitive as an employer of choice, 2.25% COLA, cost of living adjustment. There are other puts and takes in the personnel, and again, that's detailed in great detail in the Q&A as well. It sustains excellence in service delivery across all of our departments. And as I mentioned earlier, it does propose to sunset CARTA Caravan at the end of the calendar year. So the running it out to the end of the calendar year gives potentially our riders time to make other plans. I will add that there is no funding in this budget for the sustainment of ALPRs beyond the initial grant period that we are wrapping up right now. And Mayor, for you and the commission. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Granum. All right. Does anyone want to open it up with any comments or questions or discussion?
Get a few thoughts together.
Okay.
And then yes.
Excellent. I'll start if nobody else wants to. Go for it, Vice Mayor.
Okay, the first thing that I wanted to talk about with my colleagues is the TIP projects that were discussed as part of the capital improvement project capital improvement plan. I hope that you all get an opportunity to look at the revised capital improvement plan that was sent with the supplemental budget documents in our email last week. It includes, it's this document, but then it's got some blue highlighted lines where it would include these 3 projects: Easton Avenue sidewalks, Memorial Drive sidewalks, and Safe Streets for All demonstration grant added back in. So I asked for some clarification from Director Slay, and she confirmed how I was reading that document, that adding those projects back in, maintaining those projects for future, does not actually impact this year's budget that we're voting on in any way, because they're not actually slated for, the first one. The Safe Streets for All would potentially start in FY28, but again, we haven't gotten any confirmation on that project whatsoever. So it being a TDOT project, that's a best case scenario. That's a maybe.
That's a Federal Highway Administration.
Oh, sorry.
Project.
Thank you for the correction. Either way, plenty of bureaucracy and opportunities for delays. The best case scenario that may come into play next year, and if it did, then that fully funding the debt service on that project would be an additional 3 cents next year, but not this year. And then the following year, fiscal year 29, potentially the Easton Avenue sidewalks would come in, adding an additional 4 cents. And then potentially the Memorial Drive sidewalks may come in fiscal year 30, and add another penny, based on what I'm reading off of the blue highlighted lines here. So, and again, 29 is an appraisal year. So that may change the amount on whether it's a penny or whether it's, 3/4 of a penny, or what it takes to fund that debt service to keep those projects on. So, looking forward at these projects again, revisiting some of the comments I made at our last meeting, my concern would be that, if we were to strike these projects, we may not be delaying them for 5 years. We might be delaying them for 10 years, or it could be a situation where this opportunity might not come around again. So I would advocate that we keep all of these projects in the capital improvements plan. And I would love to hear all of y'all's thoughts on the matter.
Are there, well, I guess 2 questions. So if we keep them on, what level of commitment does that kind of hold us to? And then if we had these remain kind of on our, vision board, so to speak, as a priority, is there another way to pay for them? If they get wrapped up in, state or federal funding, then, that could be a decade before we see anything happen, regardless of if we commit to them or not today.
Are you asking as far as
I
like
don't know.
the
I'm
MPO,
asking that as a question.
like as far as the MPOs? Should we call them those?
As a rule of thumb, and Brent can add to this as well, our participation with the TPO, the MPO, it does put us on track to commit to these projects. Because when we get in line, it means they are reserving those funds to future fund the projects that we are committed to. To answer your question, Commissioner Wilkinson, I think that's what makes these projects actually more viable, is when you do partner and you use TDOT projects or even the federal highway. When those grant funds become available, that's what makes these projects of this scale much more likely to happen. If you try to carry that load by yourself, then you're carrying 100%. These grants are 20% match, although we do front them 100% and then get reimbursed at 80%.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I just wasn't sure if there were, even not self-funding, but like looking for some magical mystery grant out there, where we're not tied to a big bureaucracy.
Yeah. These projects are already grants, right?
Yeah.
These, we're talking about an 80-20 grant where, we're receiving 80% in grant funds, and in return, we're only required to, the only portion we're not reimbursed for, I should say, is the 20%. And that's all three is 80-20, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So, it's unlikely that there would be grant funds available to cover our 20% match. But that is, what's being put into this capital improvements plan is that 20%. That's our portion of it. So again, my other concern about canceling any of these projects is that we're canceling our 20% match and we're leaving our 80% reimbursement on the table on these projects that may never come back around. And I don't know about any of you, but I was approached at the Jubilee by more than one resident who was quite perturbed at the idea that we would be canceling the Memorial Drive sidewalk in particular, because they live nearby and they see people walking along Memorial Drive in a perilous way on a regular basis. People with mobility impairments who are not able to, walk on the grass or the ditch and the side of the road. They're potentially going to encounter traffic. Not to mention, of course, we do have the bicycle boulevard included in our capital improvement plan. And that bicycle boulevard is going to connect people to Memorial Drive as well. So we're going to be, if we finish that bicycle boulevard, which, boy, I hope we do very soon, then we're going to be potentially dumping people out onto Memorial Drive with no safe pedestrian connectivity, which I think is, a recipe for more potential danger. So that, Memorial Drive, I can't pick a favorite. Memorial Drive is very important. Of course, we all know Easton Avenue is really critical, not just for pedestrians' safety, but for our employees' safety when they're trying to do trash and bulk pickup collection on that road. And then, of course, our Safe Streets for All demonstration grant, that's the largest one. That's the largest amount of grant funding that, again, we would be leaving on the table and not taking advantage of if we were to cancel that one. And it gives us an opportunity to, with those demonstrations, it's not just about the demonstration itself, but the demonstrations set us up to be able to apply for even more grants in the future and be able to point to, we have this temporary roundabout, or we have this temporary sidewalk or bike lane set up in this area. We've been testing it and studying it for a year, 2 years. It's been successful. We've gotten feedback, we've adjusted it, and we're satisfied with the design now. The community has gone accustomed to it. Now we'd like to apply for a grant to harden that and make it a permanent structure. And then those demonstration materials, once that, whichever area is hardened, could potentially be taken up and reused to create a whole new demonstration area somewhere else. It creates potential inventory for us of demonstration tools that can be deployed around the city and, rotated and taken up as we're gradually able to locate funding to harden those projects. So this is a Safe Streets for All demonstration grant is a big dollar amount for our 20% match, but it's going to have a generational effect on the built environment in our city if we go forward with it.
I have a question. For Easton and Memorial, from where to where? I'm sorry if I missed that. So from Easton, the curve all the way around to the four-way stop, and Memorial from Cemetery to the street, the end of the street.
Easton Avenue would be from the four-way stop out to the Red Bank Chattanooga city limits. That's the what everybody considers the perilous area for staff for garbage collection. And that would be basically sidewalks on one side out to the city limits. And then from there, just terminate it at our welcome to Red Bank side. And Memorial Drive, Memorial Drive has sidewalk on the if you're going out of the city, has sidewalk on the right-hand side till you get up to the last church. So that sidewalk would be some kind of combination of sidewalk out to the city limits, which is by the Veterans, Disabled American
The
Veterans
apartment
Building.
complex.
Right in there would be the termination of that, at that triangular intersection right there.
From Dayton Boulevard, like the intersection of Memorial Drive and Dayton Boulevard?
Right.
Okay.
Oh, I don't want to speak for the county, but there has been rumors that the county may reclaim the White Oak Elementary site there on Memorial Drive as well to create another future school, maybe a new Normal Park campus. We don't know for sure what they're going to do with it or whether or not they will, but this county school district does still own that property, and it seems like they have interest in putting it back into use once again. And if so, then we're also talking about significant school traffic and children on that stretch of road, creating, more potential safety issues. I know we're talking about this in terms of our transportation goals. Creating safe streets for all has been in one form or another been one of our top 5 goals for at least 3 years now. But this also does have an impact on our parks goal. We currently have statistics that about 25% or a quarter of our residents are within walking distance, quote unquote, of a park or green space. But a significant amount of that, statistic that we currently quote is referring to areas, high density areas, such as one of the largest apartment complexes in Red Bank is right there on Memorial Drive. And it's directly across the street from the Norma Cagle ball fields. It's next door to the Duck Pond, which is private property, but used as green space by our community. And then again, just down the road from White Oak Park. So those apartments are considered from a distance standpoint to be walkable from those city-owned park spaces of Norma Cagle and White Oak, but practically there's not a safe walking route for the residents of those apartments or the other homes nearby, of course, to get from there to those parks. And so, we're kind of getting credit for that walkability score right now. It's not a reality for a lot of our residents. And this Memorial Avenue sidewalk could really expand on that accessibility, not just for what's there now, but for future phases of our parks plan, where we're talking about a potential connector, continuing the White Oak Connector Trail through the water, Tennessee American Water property, and then connecting it onto, again, the Bicycle Boulevard. So this Memorial Drive sidewalk hits multiple commission goals at once.
Director Slay, on these numbers, I'm looking at the updated, the version 2, I guess I should say, of the CIP that has these additional projects listed. And I'm reading, it says total for the project, 1.244K.
1,244,000 is the estimate on that project.
Okay, and so,
Projected total cost. So
and that's based off of what we know today. And that one particularly, the first one, the Easton Avenue one, FY29 proposed, which means we wouldn't be starting on that for at least 2+ years from now.
Correct.
Okay, and then FY30 would be 3+ years. So there's a very good chance that the costs will go up in that time. And so it will end up actually costing more than we anticipate, because you just can't. That's why we always end up having to vote to pay more for TDOT projects that have lasted for 4 or 5+ years.
We
So
have been very fortunate when other projects from other jurisdictions are either they have revenue left over, that goes back into the pot, and then Greg's work with MPO, they have reallocated funds towards our existing TDOT projects. So, But yes, it is, these are projected numbers. It doesn't bake in any number of, accurate inflation. We know what happens. The other element that I don't think actually gets baked in here is your staff resources.
Mhm.
It's very difficult to identify what impact that has on current services, and then when we bake them all in, especially looking at fiscal year 30 and 31, when we have the heaviest of that load. Not to say staff can't achieve and can't accomplish, but again, it does put a heavy shift back onto staff resources.
Definitely. So these were funds, like you just said, Director Slade, that had been like leftover from projects or from projects that couldn't be completed or what? Was all,
Most of it was from projects that the city of Chattanooga canceled.
okay,
And so they turned it in. Most of the funding, like we're getting over $500,000 for the Bicycle Boulevard,
mhm,
because when it was originally priced, it was priced at around $750,000.
yeah,
And now the price is like 1.28 million.
mhm,
So they turned that into what they call fiscally constrained project funds,
mhm,
and they gave us that additional amount. Now, that's not to say that the price won't exceed that here in the next year or two, but that's where that money came from. The same thing for the low water bridge. The low water bridge was priced at just over 600,000, and it's going to wind up being somewhere around 1.7 million. And so they are giving us nearly $1 million in funding for that one as well.
when did we first have, I guess, I don't know, present the estimate for the Bike Boulevard? Do you know? Like when we first
I-
contracted that or,
I do not know where that information came from.
okay,
It was just in some documents that, someone, I don't know, there was never a study done to find out what that would cost, to
Sure.
my knowledge.
okay.
It was just somebody's estimate on what that would be.
And that's kind of what also happened with Low Water Bridge, right?
Yes,
Okay. I remember you talking about that now at our last meeting. Thank you. Okay.
You said there was not studies done for the Low Water Bridge and the Bicycle Boulevard when the initial grant applications were made. What about these three projects? Were there studies for these three?
no, ma'am.
They're also
No,
estimates.
We did not have, we pieced together, Nate and I pieced together some estimates from TDOT figures. I know where our estimates come from for this. It was based on TDOT calculations for other projects.
Okay.
That Nate went through and got me some, but that's no guarantee. This wasn't done by an engineering firm that we consulted with that gave us, the 90 percentile cost estimate.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a tricky conversation to have because we know that these things need to be done, but it's also hard when they're 2 and 3+ years out from getting started. We don't know what's going to happen cost-wise in the next 2 to 3 years. So these additional, cents down below for potential tax increase to cover those estimated costs could also change, could change with the reassessment year. But that's also, those numbers are just for capital improvement investment, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Those tax increases. So 3 next year instead of 0, and 7 the next year instead of 3, and 14 the next year instead of 9.
Well, those aren't cumulative. Remember, it'd be 3 and then 4 more and then
Yes.
It's 3 cents in 28.
and then 4 more cents.
They're all based on the FY 27,
So you're just adding to
FY
the
27 number.
the
of the
13.
dollar. Right,
You're saying up above the $1.29 where we are now, or
Yes, ma'am.
proposing?
yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah, not cumulative.
okay. But still, it only includes coverage for, the debt service or, grant matching. Yes, capital improvement.
And I will say that is the blessing and the curse of having a CIP.
Yeah.
It really opens your eyes and it helps you make those future decisions.
Mhm.
It it's easy to fall into the trap of, we just need this for this year. Which again is why it's so critical to have a CIP to continue that horizon of what do we know is what's going to come and how are we going to achieve that? And unfortunately, sometimes it does come down to a prioritization.
Well, and also, I mean, this doesn't include any projections for funding the continued development of the Hickson or the middle school property.
Correct.
Well, it does.
It's down here in the green.
Down at the bottom, it
Oh,
does,
great.
it bakes in, subsequent phases, with debt service for both those parks.
Phase 2.
Yes. With the potential debt funding opportunities as we go.
Phase 2, not phase 3. Well, we don't know how many phases, I guess, it's going to take. Okay.
That's
There are
exactly.
some significant conversations to be had surrounding the phase 2.
Yeah.
What's next?
It does-
beyond fiscal year 27.
It does forecast millions of dollars of investment in those two parks. But if that may ultimately not be enough. It is 5 acres on the north end and 8 to 12 acres in the middle of town, and redeveloping all that is significant, so. But there is millions in there to that end.
And again, the funding indicated for those phases is based off of matching for potential
Correct.
LPRF grants that we will be able to access once the conversion agreement is fulfilled.
Once we become eligible, yes, we will explore those grant funding opportunities.
Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey, did you have any comments about
Only
any
thought I
particular
had-
projects?
Are those 3 only good for now? Or can we come back and revisit these, or it's one and it's off the table if we don't include it?
Right now, it is included in the NPO's work plan. That's what helps them set their work goals for what their projects look like moving forward. Our obligation is to commit or not commit. And that allows them to reallocate those
Okay.
funds to other jurisdictions and some of their projects that they are committed to.
But if we notify them of non-committal and they take those off of their committed funds and reallocate those funds, we can't come back and say, no, never mind, actually, we do want to do it.
We can come back in the future with those projects and they can decide then if they want to fund them. It's just right now they have the funding. That was.
Most of those projects are funded annually,
Mhm.
different times of the year. They're all transportation alternative. Most of them are transportation alternative programs. So the funding comes up periodically. It may not be offered every year, but it is offered occasionally. And so there is other opportunities to reapply for those, if we chose not to go forward.
But we
Now,
are,
the Safe Streets for All, that's a different story. I can't speak to that one
Mhm.
exactly, but it's been out there for, I think this is the 4th year, that it's been out there. So I don't see it going away anytime soon.
I think I would interpret this decision point. There are lots of options we could choose to go forward. Leaving them on the list, because we've submitted them to TPO, not striking them everybody would interpret that as we're going to do them. So the MPO would interpret that, I think members of the community would interpret that, staff would interpret that, because we would have to keep working towards executing those projects in the give and take of the MPO and TPO. Part of the intent with the capital improvement plan was to map it back to a revenue stream that we knew we could attain. So to leave it in is to, on some level, acknowledge the tax increase it's going to take downstream to execute these projects. And that's implicit, I think, in a 5-year look That's really the intent of the capital plan, is to manage your finances with a longer term view, not just an annual budget appropriation view. So I would interpret as city manager that if we keep all these projects in, then we are on a path to raise the revenue that is intended. And I think members of the community would not be wrong in assuming that as well, including the NPO. Having said all that, all these projects have multiple decision points formally baked in, where it comes back to the commission now and the commission then to make go, no-go decisions. So this is not really for locking this commission or any future come in, because all these projects have multiple times where they come back for commission approval to award design, to award construction, to approve a variety of agreements that are, it would be decision points, it would be off ramps, but the later we delay those decisions, the more orphaned investment we sort of leave behind in the wake. So that's really, the intent with the capital improvement plan wasn't to trap us in it, and this almost feels like we're trapped in it. And so maybe we should just allow that it's just our best estimate at this point in time and not feel so trapped, if that's any relief. But that was kind of the intent, was to give us a longer term view of revenues and expenses and effort. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Granum. We would be trapped of sort in a way if we signed contracts though for these
Yes.
projects.
Yes.
So,
But that,
but
we haven't reached
that's
that point.
not,
We're years away from that.
we also have the potential public works facility construction, which we all know has to happen. Scheduled to start in FY30, which is going to be a major undertaking. Just trying to think how many projects are going to be happening all at once for, what's proposed right now is Mr. Graby getting promoted to Parks and Capital Manager, okay.
Director of Parks and Capital.
Director of Parks and Capital. He's,
Still reporting to Director Tate in Public Works. but
yes,
a very empowered member of the team.
but he will be the point person for all of these projects.
There's no doubt that if you look at executing all that's anticipated here, even without the 3 projects we've been discussing, it's a very aggressive capital improvement program. And there's a lot of pinch points. We have some uncertainty regarding the 2 parks, and I believe that our commitment to the community is that we get those built out and activated. And so that is really a priority that's not stated explicitly, but baked into this is that the parks are going to happen. And there's millions of dollars set aside to that end. The staff thinking was the public works facility has to go and the parks have to go, and where there's an ability to throttle back a little bit without really giving up on anything was in the transportation area. There is another area that's really not in here at all, and that is some of the broader community development and redevelopment. The intent and the commission goal behind that, and that's so ill-defined that it's really impossible to price out. But if you look at the idea of maybe we want to facilitate expanding the public sewer system, there's no money envisioned for anything like that, or any larger commitment to a Tennessee downtown is when it gets to be a Main Street program in these out years. So it's really parks, public works facility, and transportation are the 3 major components in here. And we felt we would trim our sails a little bit on the transportation side without really giving up much. There's still a lot here in terms of transportation ongoing with low water and ADA, and then looking forward with the sidewalks and the CMAQ Bike Boulevard.
I have to disagree with that characterization that we're not giving up a lot, because I feel for residents who live on Easton or near Memorial, not having a sidewalk there for another 5 or 10 years is giving up a lot. And the Safe Streets for All, that has impacts, the way it was proposed throughout the city. We are giving up a lot. we're still getting a lot. If we cancel those projects, we are still doing a lot. I agree. But if we cancel them, we are giving up, as much as we're doing. If it had to be a discussion about, needing an additional staff member to keep all of these projects in the air in a timely manner in, again, the out years, 2-3 years from now, after the reassessment, that's a conversation I'd also be willing to have. I appreciate the limitations that we have on our very trim staff that already wear very many hats. So I don't expect miracles from anyone. This is a goal that our commission has set, and it's a goal, when money, we can set all the goals we want, but until we fund them, it doesn't happen. And so, money becomes the conversation where we decide how serious we are about things, and how fast we want to go, and how long we're willing to make people wait for the projects that they've been demanding for decades. These projects aren't new things that, just came up for the first time in our recent transportation studies. You can go back in our, 2015 and earlier plans and see that people were already talking about these issues, before we had a formal study. And they're not going to go, the desire and the need for these projects is not going to go away in the future. I will, just for perspective, the tax rate that we're considering at this moment, it would be $1.29, as the city manager had proposed. I believe the current tax rate for the city of Chattanooga is $1.93. So we're still getting a steep discount to our immediate neighbors, and I think we're providing stellar services for that discounted rate. And if it had to be $1.30, $1.32, if it was $1.29 this year, we had to go up another 16-20 cents next year in order to make these projects happen. We're still getting, again, a steep discount to our neighbors and getting better for it. So, I'm comfortable with these conversations. People, I believe, elected me because they wanted to see these changes happen. And so, if that's the conversation that we have to prioritize these and make it happen, I'm comfortable with that.
I have a kind of technical question about how this stuff works on the financial level. So this is an 80-20, all of these are 80-20. And like Director Slay, I think I heard you say we pay 100% upfront.
Correct.
When we pay that comes from a loan that we take out, or is that from our general fund? Like, where does that money come from?
I think Chris could probably answer that more relevant, but it's my understanding, yes, we do use general fund, our cash flow.
Yeah.
And the submittal process, some is great and some is not. We do have some outstanding reimbursements we're still waiting for. So I think Chris can give more information on where the 100% comes from.
Okay.
Yes. It is general fund. So we would be using our general fund to fund the cash flow, basically. The reimbursements, like she mentioned, some of them are better and some are not. Some of the older ones that we have now, like our legacy projects that we're working on, that are TIP projects that we got, have not been stellar, although there has been more movement in the last year. Greg and I have been working together on it. The newest one that we implemented has been going faster than the others. We had been getting assistance from, I think it was a person on SETD staff, and she was assisting us with some of the behind the scenes items, and so that's been moving faster. But yes, it is general fund. There could be a potential that we would get a loan for those, but just I think, in my opinion, it would be better to not pay interest for those and just stay on top of the reimbursements and just aggressively go after them, the reimbursements.
Okay, thank you. And what gives me pause here is that if we did all three of these, that would effectively deplete our general fund, which does not put us in a safe spot. I wonder, Vice Mayor, if you'd be open to kind of splitting the difference and maybe removing the safe streets for all, keeping the other two.
I mean,
I know where you stand.
I've stated that I would like to keep them all, but of course this is a 5-person decision here. So if that's what the majority of my colleagues would go forward with as a compromise, I would certainly be 2/3 more satisfied with that than striking all 3 of them.
Yeah.
But again, we'd be missing out on a lot if we cut the Safe Streets for All grant. And it only depletes our general fund if we don't fund it, if we don't, set our tax rate to sufficiently fund these projects in the future. Because again, these are coming in 2-3 years down the line, and two out of the 3 of them, possibly all 3 of them, again, after an assessment reappraisal year. So that changes the whole equation on, how many dollars we get for a penny.
Yeah. I do totally echo your sentiment too on the fact that you get a steep discount by living in Red Bank. So, and I mean that I'll bring it up later too, but I was curious as to what other municipalities are going to be at
After this budget set. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, kind of post assessment year. Yeah.
Well, considering this is not an assessment year, I would be astounded if anybody's tax rate went down in this year's budget. I would expect everybody else's tax rate to either be staying flat or going up.
Yeah.
Also, because they also have to cover inflation, ideally.
I think it's, this is sort of a swag, but about half of Hamilton County residents, total county, not just unincorporated, total county, are gonna be paying more in property taxes than Red Bank. Because 3 cities are significantly above us. Of course, Chattanooga at $1.93, Lookout Mountain at $1.63, and Ridgeside at $1.18. So those are, and you add all those population-wise, that's just a tick over half the total population of Hamilton County would be paying a property tax rate higher than us. The cities that are below us is more or less our peer cities. Collegedale, Eastridge, Saudi Daisy, Signal Mountain. Most of those have the Walmart factor, as I say, which is a significant source of revenue that we just don't have. So if that gives some perspective on where we would land in terms of property taxes, pretty much in the middle.
This is kind of related, but another question, I guess. So assuming we do, I'm sorry, I'm referring to the former Red Bank Middle School site. Assuming we kind of portion that out and offer 4 acres for development, what does that look like? I mean, is that money that goes straight into our general fund? Is that money that we can then put towards development of phase 2, or kind of route to fund some of these sidewalk projects? Like what?
It becomes what the commission desires it to be. If that was the decision that is made, that some of the 4 acres of the Q space, we've commonly referred to it from our small area study. If those parcels were identified for either lease or for sale, it would be commission's decision on what those revenues, those sales proceeds, what would they be for? If you don't identify them for something, then of course it goes into your general fund. But again, that is at the leisure of the commission and those decisions that they make at that time.
Mm-hmm. But those no revenue is currently projected for sale of any property at the middle school property or
Correct.
elsewhere.
Correct.
So that would all be, if that were ever to happen, that would be bonus to what we're seeing in this projection.
Correct. The CIP that you're looking at projects general fund use only. We're not accounting for any other revenue that supports those potential projects.
Thank you.
And also keep in mind, we still have other charters. If you recall, when we started the capital project, we have a lot of dreams and ideas that are still kind of dormant. They don't go away. They will always be there. I envision as the city manager moves forward, especially in retreats, the CIP becomes a useful tool to help navigate what you're setting yourself up for that future, the upcoming fiscal year budget decisions.
So, I am hesitant to add any of those 3 projects back in for financial reasons at this time. But really, I'm just really thinking about what Jeffrey is going to be taking on as the new manager of all of these capital projects all at once. There's one that's scheduled to be starting that he would be managing the resurfacing of Dayton Boulevard from Browntown to Gag Road. And then there's ADA upgrades and the bike boulevard for this upcoming year on top of the activation, phase 1 activation of the 2 park properties on top of phase 2 activation. It's not in the CIP, but of Godsey Ridge, right? The next phase of that project, which is fully funded by a grant. But we still have to take that into account that he's going to be managing that project. And like taking on too many projects all at once when we don't know what our staffing capacity may be for the next few years, or what, like you said, where we might be able to add additional staff in the next few years. I would feel more comfortable having those conversations later. I want all of these things, but I'm really nervous about the cost and the bandwidth that Jeffrey will have to manage all these things, on top of still being the parks manager, like on top of still navigating that space. And I guess technically, does Tegan like report to him?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So he has one direct report. It's hard to say, North Red Bank has been without sidewalks for 71 years of incorporation. We're only just going to be talking about or potentially starting sidewalk implementation up there next year, right? FY28, budgeting for that for the next year. So we're going to be at 72 plus years without any sidewalks other than outside of the Hartman Hill subdivision. So that's been a long time coming. We just have not, invested in those things, that kind of infrastructure over the years like we should have. And it's a lot to take on, and I understand that, but and we want to do it all, but we can't do it all at once. That's just where I keep landing. I definitely don't honestly, I don't think, when you apply for a grant, like a Safe Streets for All grant, I think you're like, wow, it'd be so cool if we got this. And wow, think of all it could do for our city. And then you get it, and it's a bit more complex maybe and more costly than you had any kind of, and I'm speaking for myself, I'm the you, than you had any kind of concept of. And so I think that one, especially with them being demonstration projects, I think that it's going to be hard to get buy-in from the community on that, just as far as it not actually paying for permanent infrastructure, which I know it would eventually lead to us getting access to those kinds of funds. But I was the sticker shock of at least $1.4 million of match for that was very high for me. With where we're at, we cannot overtax our residents. We just can't. It's not sustainable. Wage growth has not been happening in our community or in this area in general. So I'm very, sensitive to that as well. We've done some tax increases to try to level set because we were really far behind for a long time. And then we've made a, commitment to like keeping up with inflation and personnel, being competitive with our personnel and salaries and things like that. And I think that that's a big priority for us and for our community. But I do worry about burdening them too much all at once. Which I think this CIP, like you said, Director Slay, helps us get a picture of that. Like it's hard to really wrap your mind around all of those things when you just talk about a project here or there. When you're seeing it all in a list and all at once, it's a lot.
I never said this would be easy.
Right. Just a really random side note, well, not random, but sort of unrelated, but just to confirm, in FY28 under vehicles and equipment, that Public Works utility truck, we can take that out, right? Since we're going to be voting to pay for that tonight with ARPA funds. Do you know if that was the amount that was included in that 485,000 was the 59,000 that we're going to end up paying for the truck?
That was the estimated price.
Okay. So that would reduce that note down to 430,000 or so from 485. So there's potential room for, like you said, something else there. If there's another kind of vehicle or equipment item that comes up. I just wanted to make note of that we are voting on that tonight. So that would come out of the CIP.
One point that I'd like to add on to all the things you just said is that we need to keep, the actual ongoing budget in perspective too, because, COLA increases will continue to happen. We'll continue to need to remain competitive on in the future, and we need to preserve that bandwidth to do so. So, I'm really caught between a want and, wanting to do these three things and then the reality of doing them. So it's tough.
It is tough. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any other questions or thoughts? And we haven't heard a lot from you.
So my thinking is, with the three projects, that it seems to be like a dangle over your head. You're not sure the cost, or we wouldn't be sure of the cost when they will happen. For example, I think Browntown was 7 years ago, and it's kind of happening now. The price changed or whatnot. So if we could reapply, we could reapply a little bit later. If there was one I would keep, it would be Easton for safety versus the Safe Streets and Memorial. And there's a lot of, I try to look decision making 5 years out. Like when we look back to this, what will we say? Well, 5 years ago, we wish we could have did this or should have done that. So that's kind of how I'm looking. And this is a lot, and there are a lot of needs here. So vehicles, equipment, Commissioner just said about the COLA and whatnot. So looking at it, that's how I'm looking at it from that perspective. We want to see the parks developed. We know we need the Public Works building. So there's pool and pink down here, which is not even on the table yet. So those are things that we know we will want and need to keep for the community. But it is a tough decision. And we have projects already in the works. I know some are paid for, and there's a little bit more to pay on the low water bridge replacement, but that'll be off in FY29.
We hope. It is a TDOT project.
Okay. That's back to the dangling of when it will happen. So
This was a conservative, especially with
Mhm.
the projects. And we're not the only community that experiences those. When you think about the statewide and what TDOT actually manages, not that it's an excuse, but it's understandable. There's time involved, cost of inflation, just right-of-way design. The whole process is very lengthy, the stages we go through before it ever gets let to a contract for construction. And then the true price really shows up at that point. So again, we're being optimistic on this timeline, but the intent is just to paint a picture of what is to come.
I'll have a comment, please. Thank you. My concern about the safe streets is that it's a demonstration and it would cost us 1.4, which would escalate, I'm sure. I live in the Memorial Drive area The danger is getting across the street to the other side of the road. I see folks, now I'm not policing the place by any means, but the times I see pedestrians, they're at the softball fields walking as if there were a sidewalk. It's not a sidewalk, but it is a safe place because they're off the street. And Memorial Drive is a racetrack. Sidewalks to James until White Oak Baptist, actually. But it stops in front of their parking lot. But folks do cross the street to get to the ball fields and then potentially up to the park.
So I had something else too.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
And some of the projects, they're heavy lifts, but it's been a long time without them. So it may be a long time to get them. So that's what I was thinking as well. Like, we know we want sidewalks on Easton and Memorial and other places as well, or some people want them in their neighborhoods, which is, that's unlikely. But if it took this long to get to this space, it may take, a long time to get to where we want to be.
Yes, 72 plus years to have sidewalks in North Red Bank. Just throwing that out there.
I have another 72 years. But
Yeah, hopefully not. I think we're having conversations hopefully about things that maybe weren't being talked about in the past necessarily.
And the repaving project, Browntown and Wickley to Gad will create a shoulder, which isn't a sidewalk and it's not a bike lane, but it will at least have a place to exist outside of the traffic lane.
That is true.
And that's a down payment and ultimately having room without having to acquire right away to actually install sidewalks and pavements. So
Correct.
help is on the way.
Okay.
Do we need to get some sort of consensus on this
Yeah.
today?
Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey, were you saying that you wanted to leave in the other two projects or?
No.
Okay.
That Memorial, people walk at the softball fields.
Yes.
They get across the street if they really want to go. I know it would be easier if this stayed in for a sidewalk, but the practicality of it, get to the other side softball field, then get on the sidewalk that exists, or go down James or Ashmore and get to the park.
Okay.
So I'd say, no, don't
Okay.
proceed with it, and don't proceed with Safe Streets for All.
Okay.
I'm of the opinion that we should keep the Easton Ave sidewalks and Memorial sidewalks and remove Safe Streets for All. I think that's a compromise, not one I'm like fully happy with, but that's the nature of a compromise, I think. But, and that's compromising with my own wants too.
Right.
I drive Easton Avenue daily to get
Mhm.
to the office that I rent, and it's pretty grim, honestly. Like on trash day and trash pickup day, trash cans get hit, and I don't want to see any of our solid waste guys get hit or pedestrian. You look at the state of every single mailbox on that road, and it's like, how do I even receive mail? It's not good. So, I mean, I don't need to go into a rant here, but that's kind of where I stand on those two, and I tend to echo. With the amount of people that utilize the James Avenue ball fields and future Bicycle Boulevard, that's what pushes me towards the yes direction on the Memorial Drive sidewalks as well.
Commissioner Holmes, would you be amenable to such a compromise to keep the Easton and Memorial projects and strike the Safe Streets for All?
I'm more with just the Easton for safety.
I agree.
I would agree with that as well. If I were going to compromise, that is the only one that I feel is probably an actual safety, a real safety priority, for the very reasons you just stated. I made the mistake of trying to walk Easton when I was campaigning in 2024 because I thought I didn't do it before and I want to try it. It was very dangerous, very scary. I was down in the ditch that was overgrown, and people did not care that I was there at all. So, and I don't think they knew who I was. Maybe some of them did. I don't know. But that if I was going to compromise, that would be the one project that I would feel comfortable leaving in for those reasons.
Now let me ask staff for clarification. The Easton and the Memorial projects, when we applied for those grants to begin with, it's because those projects have been specifically identified in our transportation studies as high need areas, identified by our public input surveys. Is that
I
accurate?
can't say that's 100% true, because when yes, those were identified, but when this funding opportunity came through, it came through as a paving, because those are arterial roads and they qualify for TDOT funding for paving. But then in my discussions with the MPO, they combined it into what they call I think it's a 3R grouping, which means that we can spend the money for paving and sidewalks. And then it gets back to the question, did Nate and I appropriately request the amount of funds needed for that? We'll have to come back and revisit that. But they were generous in the amount of funding, even though we don't know what the actual cost may wind up being. But
And I also want to reiterate that while we may have the opportunity to reapply for these recurring grants in the future, it does not guarantee that we would be selected. We really benefited from a boon this last time around that Chattanooga happened to have canceled a lot of projects, a lot of dollars worth of projects all at once. And Red Bank was positioned to take up that slack in the form of these projects here. And that much funding is not always available. And we're always in competition with our neighbors for what limited funding there is available. So again, taking these off, we may have the opportunity to reapply, but there's no guarantee of when or if we would be awarded once again. But if I hear no more support for keeping the Memorial project, along with myself and Commissioner Wilkinson, it sounds like there are 3 in support of keeping the Easton project on the tip list, if I heard correctly.
Or 5 supporting that
Or 5.
particular project.
Yes, more than 3,
But just
3 or more.
yes, just adding that one back in, would that be acceptable to
Everyone.
commissioners?
Yes.
Okay,
The Easton was.
Okay.
Is that what we were saying?
Yeah, Easton.
Mayor, if you don't care, just to reaffirm that this, when you're asking that this be included back in, it's for the CIP, and that is projected for a fiscal year 29
Correct.
determination. It is not impacting your fiscal year 27.
correct. Okay. Well, that was a big conversation because that was a major, major part of our budget discussion this year, since we've never had a CIP before. So it is really guiding how we are looking at the budget this year and for the next 5 years, knowing what we have on the horizon. I'm very grateful to you again, Director Slay, for working so diligently on that. I know it was a very, very, very heavy lift. Are there, but necessary lift, yes. Are there other comments about other parts of the budget that we would like to talk about now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to talk briefly about the 16 cents increase for FY27 and then again in 28. Maybe talk through the logic of that. Maybe it was talked about last meeting and I wasn't here, but would it, feeling this as an idea, would it be more prudent to do like a larger chunk up front now and a lower chunk later, or just rip the Band-Aid off and do it all this year? I think it's tough either way you slice it. It's the same amount of money, but you know, we keep doing this over and over for obvious reasons. You know, like life is more expensive now, but just kind of wanted to field that as an item of discussion here.
Mr.
Or we
Granum
can sit in
presented
silence.
on the proposal at our last meeting, and the foundation for that approach was based off of feedback from the community, to do tax increases incrementally, to be more bearable, rather than waiting years and doing like a big tax increase like we had to do in 2023. So that was kind of the impetus for that approach. So I don't know if you have other,
No, I'm
Things
not,
to
I'm
say
not
about
strongly
that.
opinionated about it.
okay.
And no pushback on my part here. I was kind of more curious as to the why, but that makes sense. So I appreciate it.
And there is projected use of fund balance with that this year of a little over $800,000, which would still leave us with over 53% of general fund to cover operational expenses.
Yes, ma'am.
Well
in the green zone by the comptroller's.
Right, correct.
Financial health metrics.
And then next year, if everybody ends up being amenable to continuing that, the 16-cent increase with a $0 use of fund balance.
Now, part of that was also, of course, the assessor error. So part of
Correct.
the reason we're having to dip into that general fund balance more than we would normally want to, and is because of that error causing our revenues to be below what was projected. If that hadn't have happened, then we wouldn't be in this position. But that allows us to, again, spread out that impact of that error as well, to our residents.
One more minor thing too is I was hoping I'm gonna echo the previous Commissioner Pete Phillips sentiment and ask for, can we get a percent increase or change as a line on the budget, just sort of as a reference of, hey, this line for whatever went up by X percent. That would be handy to see and kind of just track through the pages. Sort of just kind of a weighty
From what
document.
we budgeted for 26.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that would just be helpful for me to see. And be
Did you
gracious
say
for it.
for each line?
Well, maybe just even just on this first page.
Oh, on that first page. Okay, I see.
Yeah, the first page is a summary, so, I mean, as long as you think it'd be appropriate to just put it there on the first page to see it.
I think that's fine. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any
I
other,
have a comment.
Commissioner?
I'm concerned that we continue to escalate with the taxes. I don't know how long our city can sustain continuing to raise. And I know last year was unique and tighten the belt, which we always need to, even households. I think my question is more for personnel in that how many fire and police staff have left for other entities? Now, this is just general. I don't need the answer right now. Because it is a competitive compensation situation. Hear me be clear, I do appreciate the staff. I appreciate the residents who have to hold on to this. I'm on Social Security now. And when Social Security rises, so does Medicare. And it concerns me for those individuals who are part of our residency. Also, that question to be answered, if it's best possible, in the next week or two. A couple of the job grades, maybe grade 9, grade 5, grade 2, to give us a total benefit package. Salaries are listed on the job grade. But when you, I know I got it at the university, bank in the longevity, the health insurance, because we pay 100%, vacation pay, bonus, and any other benefits, for us to recognize just how much we do pay in to our employees, who do a heck of a job with the resources that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I have one more line item I wanted to
Okay.
bring up. Would any of my colleagues be opposed to raising the budgeted amount for library cards from 10,000 to 15,000 to accommodate the residents who have been unable to attain them in our city?
Did we happen to learn from, Ms. Lay, did you check on the usage?
I have not had time to get that full story.
Got it. Okay. Didn't think so. So on that,
I was waiting for more information. I would like to have more information before making a decision about anything like that. Just speaking for myself, I have had 0 people tell me they couldn't get a library card. So I don't, not saying nobody has talked to you about it, but I hadn't heard that personally. So that wasn't on my radar. Like that was something that we didn't, like, maybe we didn't have enough funding for. But I would like to hear, if we can get information from the Chattanooga Public Library, I would like to hear, about that as far as like frequency and usage and things like that. To determine whether or not, if there's 20 people that have cards and they didn't use them at all last year, I don't know. Like sometimes you get it and you think you're going to do something and then you just don't actually end up using it. So if there's any way to get that data or, that information, I feel like that would be helpful for me.
I had an idea, but I don't know if it could be handled between the library and the city of if you needed a car, you just pay like part of the, like $10 and then we pay 40, but I don't know if that's a lot of, back and forth. So like if you paid $10, at least we know you may use it. But again, the who pays what and who reports, I think is the issue. And that would
Very
leave,
complicated.
and that will leave some money for more cars because it would take the $10 away from each one that you get. But
It's true.
that may not be a conversation this year, but I don't know how that will work at the libraries.
There's a multitude of ways to kind of manage
Mhm.
that. And I'm sure in conversation with the library, we may be able to explore what we have. When everything has been in the mix, it was not a priority on my list. But it is on my list to get that information. So I will gather what I can and then provide it back to city manager to distribute to all commissioners.
That was
don't
fully
know.
utilized last year? Was it fully utilized
think we
last year?
did.
Every
Yeah, we
every
ran out.
dollar
Yes.
was allocated.
Yeah.
Eventually, I know you had to post about it a few times to get the last cards out.
and the first start of library cards, weren't there at least 3 groups of folks that underwrote it? They supported it.
There were some local businesses, I think a
Yes.
The
couple.
initial investment
Sure.
was 5,000 from the city with a challenge. It was a 1-for-1. So as we released and received donations, that's how we distributed the cards.
Mhm.
And then we did get up to that, obviously that was matched. We did get a 10,000. And then last year, fiscal year 26, commission included it to carry the full coverage, the 10,000.
I don't suppose the library tracks this data, but if they happen to have any numbers on how many people approached them about cards that ended up having to be turned away, that seems like something unlikely to be tracked. But that would be the most helpful information to have.
Sometimes enough data is never too much data. So we will see what we can collect from them. Without being, our goal is not to get into people's personal business,
Right.
obviously. But if there is a way for them to tell us, how soon was something activated throughout the year, how often was it utilized for, or do we have dormant cards on the books?
Okay. All right. If we don't have any other comments at this time, we need to reserve at least, I'm sorry? Yeah, we need to at least move on to the citizen comments portion of the work session agenda. Mr. Granum?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the time for citizen comments. Please observe these rules. Comments are limited to 2 minutes here in work session or less, and the city recorder will operate a timer. If time expires, please respect her direction and conclude any comments. Comments should be addressed to the board as a whole and not to a particular commission or to staff or to the audience. The commission is here to listen, not to respond or engage in back and forth, so please do not expect a reply during citizen comment. Citizens are now invited to the podium. Please begin by stating your name and address.
Clifton McCabe, 2618 Berkeley Drive. I was just thinking back there. I know the commissioner said something about us getting a discount. I happen to actually know I actually pay for someone else's taxes in the city of Chattanooga. So I know the difference. Okay. So, but if we were to match the city of Chattanooga's tax rate of 193, okay, that's horrible, right? We would actually be able to do all we want to do, right? I don't think we would. Our population is just not enough. So keeping that in mind, we got to really be tight. I'd love to have all this stuff, but it's just not feasible. And as the commissioner said, you know, they can't stand it. They cannot bear it. Some can, but very few can.
Thank you, Mr. McCabe. Okay, any further comments? Okay, if not, if everybody's okay with it, we'll return to the work session agenda. Item number 3 on the consent agenda, approved contract for communications specialist Bridget Raper in an amount not to exceed $11,600 per year. Resolution number 26-1901. Mr. Granum.
Mayor, would you mind if I just very briefly touched on this council?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, please.
This was the wrap up of the open discussion. Thank you, commissioners, for that. Just a reminder that this time next week at from 5 to 7, we have a town hall at the community center. We have planned opportunity to share, listen, and learn. You'll have access to to department directors, and there's being materials presented around the room. It's an opportunity for people to come in, mix, see, learn, and then there'll be brief remarks from myself and the department directors, and then there'll be an opportunity for citizen comment. So that's kind of the outline of the town hall.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And let's see. This is just a very small contract for retaining Bridget Raper. We have accessed her outstanding services as a member of the Small Cities Coalition, and as our membership in there wanes, we are retaining her at much less than we were contributing to the Small Cities Coalition. And I do need to ask, Mayor, that we amended this resolution slightly. In the agenda title is the language in an amount not to exceed $11,600 per year. And that phrase needs to be repeated twice in the actual resolution before us. If I could suggest, Mayor, that we amend the title to actually continue, it says agreement with Bridget Raper in an amount not to exceed $11,600 per year. And then down in the middle of that, 1, 2, 3, the third whereas, the fourth whereas, where it specifically talks about compensation. Right after the word compensation, we say not to exceed $11,600 per year. In that fourth whereas.
It's the 5th whereas.
It is the 5th whereas, thank you. Madam Public, thank
Okay.
you, Mayor, appreciate that.
Okay.
Other than that, it's really just a continuation of our access to Bridget, and I don't anticipate any expenses under this in the current budget year. We still are covered by our contributions to the Small Cities Coalition, but I want this contract in place so that it is seamless. When we get into the next year, the contract's already in place. We do have budgeted in the proposed budget, so. Moreover, our public relations manager, Summer Sheldon, is now in partnership with Bridget, so we continue to have excellent relations with the media, very responsive to our press releases, and vice versa. They have contact us as well, and they do quite regularly. Thank you, Mary.
Okay, thank you.
I had 2 questions, please.
Yes,
Thank you.
Commissioner?
One is, where does it go in the budget?
It's under contract services in the administration and finance.
And then 2, to me, it seems like it's a double job. And I thought something like this would go into a public relations manager. And I respect Bridget's talents and skills, but it's still $11,000.
I actually don't anticipate it will be that high. That was my worst case. I think it'll be slightly, it should be below 10, in fact. What you get with Bridget is her placement in the media industry. When she drops a press release, everybody pays attention to it, and we just aren't in that place and never will be as a small city. When, you know, with uniquely with Ms. Raper, she was the public relations for Mayfield Dairy for a career. And so she's been in this media market for really 2 generations at this point. And her, the media responds to her in a way that they respond to a few others. So that's really what we're getting with Bridget. And of course, she knows us. She's very dialed in on the things we do, all the park and rec activities. And she knows our directors, of course, so this summer. And we will move into more capacity with staff over time. We're just not there yet. I think ultimately there'll be a day when Bridget truly retires, and by then we'll probably be ready to take it on ourselves.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Branham. All right, I think we're gonna have to table the remaining 2 items. And close with any other business to discuss. Nope. All right, and we will go ahead and adjourn this work session, and we will return momentarily for our regular meeting.
Should have been at 4.
Yeah.